Hello, everyone. I'm Sign1News anchor Vanessa Paloma Bajarnik. Here's a quick look at the top trending international news stories making headlines today. If you post an interesting comment about this update, we may add it at the bottom of the screen. The Wall Street Journal in the U.S. is urging Russia to release one of its journalists and is denying allegations that he is a spy. Wall Street Journal editor-in-chief Emma Tucker says she is very concerned for the safety of a reporter named Evan Gershkovich. He was arrested in Russia Wednesday. He is being detained in Moscow on suspicion of espionage. Russia's Federal Security Service says Gershkovich was spying for the American government. They say he was detained while trying to obtain secret information about one of the Russian military-industrial complexes. According to the Wall Street Journal website, Gershkovich covers Russia, Ukraine, and the former Soviet Union. The National Press Club is calling on Russia to immediately release Gershkovich, calling his detention unjust. They are also urging the U.S. State Department to take action. Russia's foreign ministry says they have not yet heard from the U.S. about the case. The Kremlin would not comment whether this was a retaliatory measure after the U.S. arrested a Russian on espionage charges last week. Prince Harry made a surprise appearance at London High Court for a pre-trial hearing on a privacy invasion lawsuit. Harry brought the lawsuit against Associated Newspapers, ANL, along with singer Elton John, his husband, David Furnish, and actors Elizabeth Hurley and Sadie Frost. They all say they are victims of numerous unlawful acts, abhorrent criminal activity, and gross breaches of privacy carried out by journalists or private investigators working on behalf of ANL titles The Daily Mail and The Mail. The alleged acts include hacking mobile phone messages, bugging calls, getting private information, such as medical records by deception, and approving the breaking and entry into private property. ANL denies the allegations and is seeking to have the case thrown out. After months of delays, Turkey has approved Finland's bid to join NATO. The Turkish parliament voted unanimously in favor of Finland's membership on Thursday, clearing the last hurdle of the process. The vote fulfills a promise from Turkey's president to not oppose Finland's entry into the alliance. Turkey was the last of NATO's 30 member states to ratify Finland's membership. Sweden has also applied to join the bloc. But Turkey and Hungary remain opposed to Sweden joining. Both Sweden and Finland ended decades of non-alignment in the wake of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. "21-year-old Akula volunteered at 8 a.m. on the day Russia invaded Ukraine, ready to defend his country. But the war turned out to be nothing like Akula imagined. In his video diary, he shares the horrors of war, saying most days he was scared, cold, lonely, and hungry. The war turned out to be nothing like Akula imagined. In the beginning, he says he didn't feel the burden of war. But then he was sent to the Eastern Front and says it is impossible to describe what he experienced in words. Akula says he has suffered 2 severe concussions from artillery and rocket strikes. He is now at a mental health center for Ukrainian soldiers. And the true impact of the fighting is only beginning to be understood. Ukraine is still urgently calling for volunteers. Akula says he is not physically or mentally ready to return. But in a few days, he could be sent back to fight, perhaps to die. In the 1980s, notorious Colombian drug trafficker Pablo Escobar amassed a huge collection of exotic animals. After his death in 1993, officials relocated most of the animals, but not the hippopotamuses. They were given the name cocaine hippos. There are now about 130 cocaine hippos living there now, despite efforts to castrate them or shoot them with contraceptive darts. And they are starting to threaten agriculture and human safety in Colombia. Colombian officials say they have a plan to relocate 70 hippos, but it will cost about $3.5 million. It is not possible to bring the animals back to their native Africa because they could upset the ecosystem there. Instead, 10 will go to a Mexican sanctuary, and the others will go to one in India. Britain's King Charles III made his first official visit overseas this week. The goal of his 3-day trip to Germany was to repair relations with the country. He is the first British monarch to address the German parliament. He talked about the historical cultural links between the two countries. and how they are now working together to support Ukraine in the war against Russia. He also met with Ukrainian refugees who fled their country when the war started and are now being housed in Germany. Charles originally planned to visit France first, but the anti-government protest forced him to postpone the trip. Most 17-year-olds are preparing for college. But this teenager, Liam Garner, was preparing for a different adventure. An amazing bike journey. He started in Prudhoe Bay, Alaska on August 1st, 2021, the northernmost part in the U.S. accessible by road. When Garner left, all he had was a tent, a sleeping bag, a day's worth of food and water, some portable batteries, a medical kit, and extra parts for his bike. He biked through 14 countries, nearly 2,000 miles, over 527 days. On January 10th, 2023, he arrived in Ushuaia, Argentina, the southernmost point in South America. For most of the journey, Garner was biking alone. And at times he considered giving up, like when he was robbed in Mexico and struggled with extreme heat, or when he spent a month in the hospital after an accident. But he persevered. His next adventure? Garner is planning to write a book about his trip. Sign1News will be broadcasting international news updates every Sunday. A big thank you to our Sign1News app supporters. You help make this broadcast happen. You can download the Sign1News app by heading to the App Store or Google Play Store on your smartphone. And you can also watch on Amazon, Apple TV, and Roku.